to Have Your Say. This is one of our online versions at this time, and we thank Mainline Television for enabling us to do this. So welcome to Have Your Say. I'm Ann Minicozzi, president of the Community Breakfast Collaborative. We have our Undoing Racism breakfast coming up, and it will be a virtual event this year. And I'm here with my co-host, Diana Robertson, president of the NAACP Mainline branch. And today our guest is Kenneth L. Huston, who is the president of the NAACP Pennsylvania State Conference. So we're really pleased to have you with us today to talk about important matters and also just to have some more understanding, even repeating for some of our audience members, but for our new audience members about the NAACP. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To start off, could you give us some biographical information, how you started with your involvement with the NAACP? And I heard you speak before, so I think you're a good president of the state conference, and I'm also an NAACP member as well. So I guess I doubly appreciate you being here. But could you give us some biographical information that you'd like to share?
Absolutely, and thank you very much again for having me. My civil rights teeth were cut actually in the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh. I served as the Director of Employment and Entrepreneurial Development, and I actually have been affiliated with the NAACP for over 20 years. The local branch that I was a member was the McKeesport branch located in Western Pennsylvania. Of course, I'm located and housed in the Pittsburgh area. So that's really where I'm from, is Western Pennsylvania. I've been affiliated with the NAACP on pretty much all facets, except I did not serve in the executive committee of the state conference. I served as a youth chair. Then I went on to serve as an education chair. Then I became a branch president, and I'm in now my fourth term as a local branch president. In last year, I threw my hat into the ring to run for the Pennsylvania State Conference presidency, and of course was elected October of 2019. So I'm not even really halfway through my first year, and it has been extremely interesting. That's my civil rights background.
Great. And so as the president of the state conference, what is your primary role?
My primary role in the Pennsylvania State Conference is to maintain and assure that branches are stimulated according to our bylaws. And in that framework, meaning that I put forward the agenda from national to the state conference and work to ensure and assure that we are doing everything in reference to our national mandate. From the state level, I perceive our job as really being the big sister on the block in supporting our local branches and our programs throughout the state.
Okay, so between the COVID-19 pandemic and the most recent senseless police killings that have taken place, what do you believe are positive outcomes that could emerge out of all of this?
Well, COVID-19 is something we haven't seen in over 100 years. We had not seen a pandemic of this magnitude in over 100 years. One of the things that I think we absolutely can do and should do is make sure that we bridge the gaps with community in all aspects. We need to come together, work together from a community perspective in dealing with the health issue of our fellow Americans and our neighbors and friends and family. The other thing that I think we need to do is we need to be prepared. And I think that if we've learned nothing else from COVID-19, we've learned that we must be prepared for whatever may come through the results of this, because we're looking at COVID-19, and as we should, as a health issue, but there's so many other factors that are impacting our respective communities, right? And it's not exclusive to just one area, right? We've seen it uh, metastasize throughout the United States and throughout our Commonwealth. So we have to take a positive and aggressive approach to getting ahead of what may come down from the results of this.
Okay. So are there some very specific things that you'd like to see in light of the things that, especially a lot of the inequalities that have been exacerbated because of all of this? Are there some specific outcomes that you would like to see take place?
Well, in reference to COVID-19, I would like to see a aggressive healthcare bill come out of Washington and down to the states, because now we know that the health aspect of it is huge. People cannot afford affordable health care. Those that would test positive and be impacted by the virus don't have the luxury as those that have real strong and good health care. What I would like to see is on the state and the federal side that we have an aggressive approach to giving folks affordable health care. In reference to what is going on with the police and the violence issue of policing in respective communities, that has to be a policy and a law change. Um, One of the things that we advocate for in the NAACP, and Diana, some people challenge, well, what is the NAACP doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I take issue with that on all fronts, because what folks don't understand is that we in the NAACP, who are by the way, volunteers, we're not paid staff, 365 days a year, we deal with the issues of civil rights and human rights. Um, and I don't want to minimize what happened with Mr. Floyd and those that have been killed at the hands of police officers. But this is not new for us in the NAACP.
Right.
We have been fighting to change laws and policies in local police departments for years. So unfortunately, it took Mr. Floyd's egregious death for everyone to wake up, both black, white, and other nationalities, to say, this is not America. We have to do something about this. So one of the things in the Pennsylvania State Conference that we're doing and we're advocating for in our respective branches throughout the Commonwealth is we're looking for policy change. We want to stop the chokeholds. We want to stop the knees on the neck and things of that nature. And that comes through policy. So if we can get police departments to have more aggressive training in our respective and local communities, if we can see on the federal side that there's more aggressive laws that deal with police violence, this will help us to hopefully not see this happen again.
And I know in my some of my conversations that I've had, and I actually, I mean, I have cousins who are police officers and just other folks that I know in general. And one of the things I just asked someone recently, you know, when in looking at the state statutes in regard to policing, the issue on excessive force and that type is very vague. And I think that's what has created some of this, because then the individual police departments then make up their own policies. And I think if we had something that was at least on the state level, across the board, state and federal, but you know, clearly we could work on the state level that was more uniform, then I think that would help guide the policies on the local level. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you make a very excellent point. Actually, that is the point that should be made. In the state of Pennsylvania, our state statutes are very vague when it comes to policing. And that is a major, major problem. So what we're taking a look at is in the state conference level is we have 3 lawsuits already pending on 3 different areas. So we're looking at how do we address this issue, and probably what we're going to have to do in the NAACP is file some form of a lawsuit asking for the statute to be stronger and more clear. Um, that is where the NAACP, from a national perspective, is extremely unique. We have more laws that we had helped implement and more laws that we fought for in the history of the United States of any civil rights organization in the Library of Congress. So that makes us extremely unique as a civil rights advocate in these United States. The other thing that I think that we must not lose sight of is there has to be a relationship building between policing and community. And I'm not talking just lip service. A lot of times you see there's an event where every now and then you get a police officer to come and talk to the kids and bring the dog. The kids get to pet the dog and things of that nature. Well, it has to be more aggressive than that. It has to be where we are truly building that community relationship with our police officers, because let's be honest, they then become a part of our community.
Right.
One other thing I want to bring to you all's attention that we in the state conference are probably going to be taking a look at more aggressively as well. There is this uh, thing where local police departments are reaching out and bringing rural individuals with some form of military background into urban communities, and they have no investment in those respective communities. Cultural sensitivity is paramount in a situation like this. It's not just the training, but it's them understanding different cultures and where different walks of life where individuals come from. This is a major concern as myself as the president of the state conference from a cultural perspective. We're bringing these individuals in. There needs to be psychological testing relevant to these individual police officers, and it should happen no less than 2 years so that we make sure from a psychological standpoint, these men and women that are coming into these communities are fit to serve on a police department. Because let's face it, they have a license to carry.
Yes.
Licensed, when they put that badge on, they represent the law. So we have to make sure that from a psychological standpoint, their framework of thinking is in alignment of what we would want for somebody policing our communities.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you also about if you could think of it in terms of a spectrum where on one end of the spectrum you have neighborhood police officers who are from the community and who engage with the residents as a fellow resident, really. And then at the other end of the spectrum is really the militarization of the local police, where the equipment, the materials that the military doesn't need anymore are being sort of sold off to local police stations at the township or at the county level, whatever it would be. So now you have, your neighborhood police officer in SWAT gear at a given event, and there really isn't that need for that. Does the NAACP have a view on that militarization that's happened over the last number of years?
Absolutely. That, and you raise a good point. That is a major concern from the Pennsylvania NAACP state conference perspective, because militarizing police is not what should be happening. We are not. One of the things that makes us great as a country is, and this is where we have to be careful, is militarizing police puts an aura of fear in communities that should not exist. What does that do? It has a trickle down effect, because then people are extremely intimidated by seeing someone walk around in black SWAT gear, acting like they're in Iraq or Iran or one of these countries where that is the norm. That is not the norm in the United States and should not be in our respective communities. And the other effect that that has on the community is this: people have a tendency not to trust the police, particularly in the urban communities. So when crime is happening in those respective communities, people are less likely to go to the police because of that lack of trust, right? And that is a cultural issue as well. Um, better policing means better relationship building, better trust, and uh, I was in the military, so I served. I seen weapons of destruction that we absolutely should not be having in our local communities. I have four family members. I have two nephews that are police officers and two cousins, one on the state level and one on the local level, one in the federal level. And I talked to all four of them actually in my own little conversations with them, and they all gave me very unique perspectives on how they see what is going on, particularly with the deaths of African Americans throughout this nation. And their concern is that you're getting bad cops being put in with good cops, and it's giving the whole entire perspective of policing a bad.
Yeah.
So the NAACP has launched a "We Are Done Dying" campaign, and so as we begin processing and looking at how we take the anger and then turn it into action,
Yes.
how do you see that campaign as gets expressed within communities and the work of the NAACP?
Good question, Diana. The We Are Done Dying campaign, I thought, was an excellent vehicle to have a broader conversation relevant to how do we deal with all the anger that we see going on throughout the United States and actually throughout the world. This has become a global thing. One of the things that we in the Pennsylvania State Conference are going to strategically take a look at is how do we take that vehicle and have it go down to and throughout our local NAACP branches. We Are Done Dying campaign is an excellent vehicle. Why? Because there's different aspects of the We Are Done Dying campaign that we can utilize in our respective branches throughout the Pennsylvania State Conference. We Are Done Dying is a pretty strong statement, but it is a statement that is extremely true. One of the things that we have to do is have that tough conversation in our respective uh, jurisdictions throughout the Pennsylvania State Conference in relevance to what are we seeing happening in our communities, how can we make things better, and actually holding town halls, whether virtually, well, not too much in person, but having those virtual conversations with our community, our community members, and really talking about that campaign. And let me say this: the Pennsylvania State Conference NAACP is unique, like other state conferences are unique, because we have independent jurisdictions throughout our state. So it's not necessarily a hand in glove fit. One of the things that I would like to see is in the respective communities throughout our state conference in our branches that they put together a very comprehensive vehicle through the We Are Done Dying campaign to address their community needs and issues. Because I can say this, and I think other branch presidents would agree with me. There are some areas in our state where that is not really uh, 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 a hard issue as far as police and community relationship. So what we can do is those that have not necessarily experienced that, you can still have those conversations, right? And really talk about, well, how can we be proactive to this approach than reactive?
Very good. And so just a little bit more when you talk about the units and the work of the units. I know that I think for the past 2 weeks nonstop, there have been pretty much a protest every day somewhere. I know for myself in my area, there's going to be another one on Sunday that I will participate in that. And with having meetings with the community, I mean, it really is a time that the community does want to come together and have a lot of the different conversations. And I do think that as units who have a relationship, some relationship with your own particular community, then to really promote and express the mission of the NAACP and all of the game changers, because those game changers express the core areas where we have where we have most of the inequities. So how would you encourage the units to actually focus on those game changers in this particular time?
This is an opportunity for our branches throughout our state conference to really capitalize on the issues in a very, very serious way. What do I mean by that? I believe, and I think every branch president should believe, that this is the time where we need to educate our community about the importance of the vote, the importance of getting out there and joining the NAACP. This is an opportunity for us as the oldest civil rights organization in the country to really build our membership and get young and old and alike to come on board and work with us as we drive to move forward the policies and laws that we need to drive to move forward. And I say this all the time, and I appreciate protesting. That is part of our civil right. I appreciate marches. They're awesome. That is the bedrock and the foundation of the NAACP is marching and protesting. But after the marches, after the protesting, then what? What is the plan of action? And there has to be a plan of action by those that are angry. I'm a minister and I always say, be angry, but sin not. But use that anger and stimulate it to a positive direction, right? Because faith without works is dead. So anger without works is dead. We cannot protest our way into changes because protesting at some point will have its limits. We have to be careful in the midst of these protests and marches, though, that we have some that want to come in and basically be extreme in their attempt to cause havoc in a respective community. That's not what we should be doing. What we should be doing is coming together as a people and saying, okay, we're going to protest, we're going to march, but we're going to march with a purpose. We're going to protest with a purpose. And that purpose should be educating people that I always say this, and I said it with the Auditor General yesterday. We have a weapon in our arsenal that we advocate for in the NAACP, and that weapon is the power of the vote. When you vote, you matter. And it cannot be just in a general election, because the general election has its place, but we have to look at our school boards. We have to look at our council members. We have to look at our county commissioners and people that have position of power that impact and affect us. Because let's be honest, on the local level is where that's immediate impact on us. So we need to educate, particularly our young people, of the importance of the vote.
I wanted to ask about one word. I've been trying in my various organizations that I'm involved in to talk about the word intersectionality, how all of us who are working on many different causes are all connected. And I would like to see the NAACP We Are Done Dying effort invite other organizations to join and coalesce and be a part of a coalition to connect, because there's so many across so many different organizations. We all need to work together and some kind of mechanism so other organizations can sign on to this.
Well, you're absolutely right. One of the things that we could do, I think I'm muted. Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, I'm sorry. It looked like it said mute. So you're absolutely right. One of the things that I think that we, as the NAACP Pennsylvania State Conference with our respective branches, we need to build those partnerships, okay? Because you're as strong as your numbers and you're as strong as your partners. One of my concerns as the Pennsylvania State Conference president is that we don't want to seem like it's all our way, the way we do it, and if you don't do it our way and how we do it, then you can't be a part of us. That is not what I want to see happen. What I would love to see happen is that we build a stronger coalescing of partnerships throughout the Pennsylvania State Conference. And the We Are Dying campaign actually is a vehicle for that. It gives us the ability and capability to bring those partners into the fold and work with us as we advance the purposes of the cause, of civil and human rights.
Okay, so as our time is winding up, this has been great conversation. I just wanted you to take a minute to give some closing remarks and then include the young people, the youth, in your closing remark.
Well, absolutely, and that's who I was getting ready to speak to. One of the things that I want the young people to understand, when we call them our youth, whether that's young adult or our babies, and I call them babies because I'm at that age where now I'm calling young adults babies. So I tell them my age, but I think what the younger adults need to understand is that they have a foot at the table in the NAACP. There is this misperception and conception that the NAACP is not welcoming to our youth. One of the things in the Pennsylvania State Conference we're doing very aggressively, hopefully, is that we are trying to engage and bring the youth into the decision-making process. It is absolutely paramount and imperative. The other thing that I want to do is I want to speak to those that have labored in the vineyard relevant to civil rights for a number of years. You still have a purpose. Re-energize yourself, take your vitamins, drink your orange juice, and get back out there on the battlefield because we absolutely need you. The Pennsylvania State Conference NAACP is actually moving in a fabulous direction. Since my presidency, we have 3 lawsuits pending, one for fair education distribution throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We have prison gerrymandering lawsuits that we're dealing with, and we're dealing with the health and protection of voters throughout this state. So we're aggressively working very, very hard. I think that this can be an ongoing thing with us relevant to taking on policy issues. I believe in policies and laws and taking that on from that perspective, because ultimately that's where you'll see the wins. So we're doing a lot of great things. I want anyone that's in your audience to understand, get and be a part of your local branch, be a part of what's going on, and be a difference maker.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. We welcome you for being here today. Your information was great information. I know that we're going to have you again to speak to progress. But for everyone to know that as part of this Have Your Say program, that hopefully you're able to listen to the information, join us, and understand that as we move forward, you too will be able to have your say. Thank you.
Thank you.